All right, so I'm sure you guys know by now that Kyle Kulinski was kicked off of his own show, Krystal Kyle and Friends, in a Bernie Sanders interview. Bernie Sanders, apparently, his media team only wanted a one-on-one. They wanted it with Crystal Ball, so they barred Kyle Kulinski from the interview. Now, the details of this are kind of confusing. I summarized most of it in my previous video that I did on it. I'll leave a link in the description box down below to go watch that, go check that out. But there are some even other things that I didn't discuss, like, the potential possibility that it was simply a one-on-one idea and they just wanted to do it with Krystal. I don't understand then why they would do that on the Krystal Kyle and Friends podcast. If it were a one-on-one request, Crystal Ball says that she asked and requested months ago. They came back. It's kind of confusing as to whether or not it had to do with wanting to be the Krystal Kyle and Friends thing. I don't know. It's very bizarre, but a lot of people's speculation, including Kyle Kulinski's, is that, some of the things that he said to Bernie Sanders were things that they didn't like. Now, I'm going to reiterate one thing that I have been saying this whole time. There is no way it was Bernie Sanders that made the decision. It's not like Bernie Sanders was like, you know what, I don't like that Kyle Kulinski guy. I don't want to do an interview with him. I don't even think he knows Kyle, who he is, even though he did an interview with him. Because that was a very brief interview, and Bernie Sanders is an incredibly busy guy. He's an incredibly massive dude. Obviously, he had legitimate runs for president. He doesn't know about lefty online stuff that's going on. He just doesn't. So it was obviously his media team that did that. I believe it was his media team that probably didn't want him on because of maybe, him calling Bernie a cuck or whatever. But Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report, another one of the great progressive channels here on YouTube, had weighed in on this, and I wanted to tell you guys about what he said. So he sent this out. He's, of course, Kyle's friend as well. He says, I'll always love and respect Bernie Sanders, but his media team shutting Kyle Kulinski out of his own show is just so despicable. It's the same thing Tulsi did to Anna Kasparian. It's not because Kyle is, quote, too controversial, because then his team would have shut out Joe Rogan. So this last part isn't necessarily true because, well, when it comes to any decision you make in life, it's always benefits versus negatives. Joe Rogan has one of the biggest platforms, period, right, in today's media. Kyle has a big channel, obviously, but it's nowhere near the size of Joe Rogan. So it could have been as simple it's not worth it in this case, but in Joe Rogan's case, it would be worth it, hypothetically. So it's not necessarily true. But then he says, who knows why they did it? I know after I criticized Tulsi and Warren, their teams conspicuously stopped responding to me. They clearly wanted softball interviews. Politicians should stop complaining about mainstream media if they refuse to even acknowledge the existence of indie media. Now, I was not aware that he was actually in talks with the Warren campaign for an interview. I do remember that he was in talks with the Tulsi Gabbard campaign for a Tulsi interview, but that suspiciously just ended up dying out for whatever reason. I don't know why. No, that's a lie. I do know why. The reason why is because he, immediately when he made that video criticizing Tulsi Gabbard, I think that was when the communications essentially got cut off. So essentially, he was being slightly skeptical of Tulsi Gabbard, and then all of a sudden, magically, Tulsi didn't want to do an interview. He says, we're rough around the edges and don't follow traditional media norms, but we don't have the funding right-wing YouTubers have, so coming on our shows is one way they can build us up. I'm super disappointed in Bernie's team over this. It's honestly depressing. So I would agree with Mike that it would have been a good idea to do the interview with Kyle Kulinski, even though he said some things that may have crossed the line. And so I was actually surprised at how much of my audience, it seemed like in the comments it was most of my audience, but the people on that video, if you go and read the comments, it seems like most of them were actually defending Bernie and his decision not to have the interview with Kyle Kulinski. And so the main thing people were citing was this tweet where Kyle Kulinski responded to Bernie Sanders declining to endorse Ed Markey in his race against Joe Kennedy. And he says, what a fucking cuck. So he called Bernie Sanders a cuck. A lot of people basically saying, well, okay, there's a difference between constructive criticism and then just name calling and stuff like that, which I can understand. Definitely it would be kind of odd to do an interview with somebody who called you a cuck. I don't know if Kyle would do that with somebody else. But regardless, I still think that even then, I still think it would have been a good idea because Kyle was a huge, massive supporter of Bernie Sanders. And that would just have to be something you would have to put to the side, obviously. You could say that people on CNN and mainstream media do way worse things than he did here, and he would still go on. But in that situation, obviously, it's a huge benefit to Bernie Sanders because he needs to go on mainstream media to pull mainstream media voters in for him. Then that's there. But it is definitely true that the squad and those kinds of representatives that get elected, progressive reps who don't go on mainstream media, is a bad thing, because then you're just emboldening mainstream media outlets by only appearing there and not by appearing on independent media outlets. I know that, remember AOC went on basically all of them before she got elected, but then after she got elected, the only thing I've seen her on, I think, is like TYT maybe once or twice or something like that, but even that doesn't seem to be something they're doing. And then I think recently she was on the Majority Report once, but it's like, it's so scarce, and it's, I don't know. Kyle says he doesn't even do interviews anyways, so I don't know. It's a weird situation, obviously. You've got Kyle calling Bernie Sanders a cuck and then, wanting to interview and blah, 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 blah. He says he doesn't do interviews, and then he's mad Squad doesn't come on, blah, blah, blah. You get what I'm saying. But I was surprised at this poll that I put up. I said, what do you think about Bernie kicking Kyle Kulinski off of the interview with him? This is on my community tab. And the responses I put were, Kyle deserved it for calling Bernie a cuck. Bernie made the wrong move to dodge an interview with a semi-critic. And then I don't know. And 34% said Kyle deserved it for calling Bernie a cuck. 41% said Bernie made the wrong move to dodge an interview with a semi-critic. So what you can see here is that's pretty contentious. That's only a 7% lead. And so what you can see here is there is a stunning amount, at least within my audience, who are actually defending Bernie Sanders and not doing the interview with Kyle Kulinski. Now, that's also surprising because my audience consistently, when polled, say that Secular Talk and Kyle Kulinski is their favorite show/host in the progressive sphere. So it's pretty interesting to see that. Now, of course, I think Anna Kasparian said something here. It says maybe Kyle blackmailed Bernie. There's no evidence of it. In fact, the accusation is insane. But hey, why not, right? So obviously that's a lot of the... I think all of the TYT people were very disappointed in Kyle for... He both sides did, and he kind of took the wrong side in a lot of ways. He conceded to a lot of stuff that wasn't true. And he's really reaping the sort of... He both sides of the situation, and then now nobody likes him, basically, is what happens. So it's kind of a bad outcome for him. But I agree with Mike in that he should have done it anyways, even though you could make a sound argument like, hey, you called him a cuck, you don't even do interviews, and you say you don't do interviews in the first place. Obviously he now has Krystal Kylan friends, so that's what it would have been on. There's also the potential that Bernie just wanted a one-on-one and he liked Krystal. Krystal was also a big critic of Bernie Sanders after the election, by the way. I'm sure you guys remember I did videos on that as well. But I don't think she called him a cuck. So, I don't know. This is a multifaceted thing, but, let me know what you think in the comments section.